All right, welcome. I want to welcome you, Deborah, and I want to welcome everybody else to today's installment of my Six-Figure Pro series of job search webinars. I'm Tammy Kabell, and I'm with Career Resume Consulting, and I'm extremely excited about today's topic, which is inside the mind of HR. It's not only a subject that every job seeker is interested in, from what I can gather, but and that's whether or not you're looking for a six-figure position. I think everyone is interested in hearing about HR's positions and views, and really from an HR professional, what goes through your mind when you're picking out candidates and when you're interviewing candidates. So today I'm very excited because I get to interview a very dear friend of mine, Deborah Hayes. Hi, Deborah.
I appreciate it, Tammy. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. So what we're going to find out today is really if there's anything that you're, quote, looking for, and if that really even exists, because I hear that a lot with job seekers that I talk with. Anything that might turn you off, how you select candidates, and also how you work with departmental hiring managers. In other words, the person that's going to be our listener's next boss. So first I'd like to welcome, we've got 37 new people that have signed up to listen to the webinar since our last call last month. So I really appreciate you joining us either live or by listening later. It looks like right now we're continuing to have people kind of file in. Most people are online. Looks like we've got about 62 people so far, and almost all of them are online. But you can always listen to my past webinars by visiting YouTube and searching for my name, which is Tammykabell, Tammy Kabell. And there's over 17 hours of instruction on how to find six-figure job in weeks and not months, and also how to position yourself to be paid what you're worth. So before we get started, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping instruction, meaning that if you have questions, everyone is muted, and if you have a question and you'd like to raise your hand and you're on the phone, press *2. And if you're online and you have questions for Deborah, and you put this in throughout the hour, then I want you to type in the questions in the lower left-hand corner of your screen that you're listening to. So if you do have questions, type those up. We're going to be taking those last 10 or 15 minutes of the hour and going through all of the questions that you have that have been burning in your mind that you would love to talk to an HR professional about. And since we've got several people that signed up for this series since the last time I spoke, I want to really quickly introduce myself. I'm the owner of the executive career firm called Career Resume Consulting. We're here in Kansas City, in the Kansas City area. I'm actually in Lee Summit, which is a suburb, and I know we've got people listening in throughout the United States. And I do work with people throughout the United States, but at any given time, about half of the people I work with are here in Kansas City. And we do executive branding for job searching. We do resume writing and also full-service executive career services. And a majority of our clients, it's now at 70% for this year and last combined, have started their new positions within 10 weeks of beginning their search process with us. I'm also the resident job search expert for KCMO 710 AM radio, and I host a Monday morning job market minute every Monday at 7:49 a.m., and starting next Monday, I'm also going to be doing a Monday afternoon job market minute during the Sean Hannity show at 4:49 p.m. as well. So now I'd like to introduce the star of the hour, which is Deborah Hayes. She has been an HR manager for over 15 years. Now, she's also been an independent career coach for 4 years. She's been a recruiter. She's been in outplacement with Right Management. You couldn't pick someone that's more qualified to be inside the mind of HR because she has lived and breathed it for a good number of years. She's also the co-founder and co-leader of the New Landings organization. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that. It's a nonprofit organization here in Kansas City. She's also a professional seminar leader. She's a facilitator, a trainer, and a motivational speaker, and a life coach. And I would be remiss if I didn't share that she's also passionate about helping others design a life that's personally meaningful and stimulating, and that's in alignment with their individual goals and objectives. As well, she's passionate about health, wellness, and productivity management, and is committed to professional and personal growth. Okay, well, let's get ready to take notes, because you will be able to listen to this recording later. I'll send you a link to it later today, but you'll absorb it better if you're listening live and taking notes as you go. Remember to be thinking of questions that you want to ask Deborah, because here's your chance to get her opinion on anything that's happening in your specific situation in your job search. So I'd like to begin by covering why, or let you know why I'm covering this topic today. I talk with a lot of job seekers, and it seems like they're always trying to guess what HR is, quote, looking for. And I'll give you an example. I was working with a client just yesterday, Jim, and I was preparing him for an upcoming HR interview. And I asked him, I said, what questions do you have ready for the HR person that you're going to be interviewing with? And the first one that he said was, well, I want to ask, what are they looking for in a candidate? I'm not a really big fan of that question. And it seems like it's on everyone's mind. It seems that, to me, and I would love your input on this, Deborah, but it seems that when you say, what are you looking for in a candidate, really what you're saying is, just tell me what I need to say to get this job. Doesn't that sound about right? I mean, that's kind of how I take that. But what goes through your mind when you hear that question? What are you looking for in a candidate?
Good question, Tammy, and thanks. And thank you for that introduction. I appreciate it. From my perspective, from a recruiting perspective, and let me start there, when I sit down to interview a candidate, obviously I've already gone through their resume. I've done some research into who they are. So I know that they have the skills and the ability to do the job. So really I'm kind of past that. I certainly want to dig into their background a little bit further, but I wouldn't have asked them to have an initial conversation with me if I didn't know that they had the skills and the abilities to do the job. So more than anything, again, from a recruiting perspective, I'm looking for a culture fit and for a personality fit and for somebody who's got a lot of energy and zeal and has done their homework about the job. So when you ask me, what are you looking for in a candidate, I want to make sure that that individual is going to be a good fit for the organization that I'm doing the recruiting for. I think that's just really critical, not only from the candidate's perspective, but from the company's perspective. If it's not going to be a good fit for them and it's not going to be a good fit for me and the company that I'm representing, then chances are, maybe 6 or 8 months down the road, we're going to be in the back in the same situation looking for someone to fill that position.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, because so many times I feel that people who have been unemployed for a long time, or because of situations in their life, they really, I use the D word, they're desperate to find something. Mm-hmm. They try to fit their square peg into a company's round hole and really anything for their next paycheck. And that's a big red flag for recruiters and for HR managers, right?
Absolutely agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And there also, and I know when I was a hiring manager with American Century Investments, when I would get a large stack of resumes and they would all look like the job description because people wanted to make sure they flood it with keywords, so they just copy and paste the job description. It was very frustrating for me because I didn't know who to call. I didn't know who to pick. Do you find that to be the case even today, recently?
Oh, absolutely, Tammy. And in that situation, when I've got resumes like that look so similar and so much alike, I start digging a little bit further to see maybe what leadership skills they have. may not be a leadership position that they're looking for or that they're interviewing for, but all of us need to have some leadership skills, even from a project perspective or from a job perspective. So I'll start digging a little bit further into their resume to see if maybe they have some leadership skills. If they can tell me a little bit more about what they've done maybe from a volunteer or a community perspective. And I know there are different, you hear recruiters say, yes, I want to see that information on your resume, and some of them say, no, I don't want to see it on your resume. To me, again, and this is me personally, from a recruiting perspective, it just helps me to see that you're a little bit more of a well-rounded person. And when I'm hiring, that's what I'm looking for. So that's what I start looking for when I see those resumes that look exactly alike, and I haven't had the opportunity yet to actually have a conversation with the individual.
Okay. I like the leadership point. I think that's definitely worth noting. And then also the well-roundedness of the volunteerism. Now, with the volunteering, is that do you look for that just for unemployed people, or are you looking for it with people who are currently employed and have been employed for many years?
I think it's important in both situations, Tammy. From the person who is currently looking for a new job or for their next career opportunity, it shows me that they're still staying engaged, that they want to be involved, doing some volunteer work is an excellent opportunity for you to do networking. You just never know who you're going to bump into, or who might be, you're going to tell your story, and somebody might be able to say, oh, I know an individual who's hiring at that company that you're interested in. There's just all kinds of networking opportunities that can take place there. From the person who is already employed, when I look at their volunteer background, it helps me to see that they're able to manage different responsibilities, that they have that balance between their work and their personal life. So again, it's seeing that they're a little bit more of a well-rounded individual, that they can multitask. I don't like using that word that much, but they're able to do. It's kind of overused.
It's a no-no word for my resumes. You'll never find it on a resume for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it just shows that they that they do value, again, the opportunity, the time that they have at work, but they also value the time that they have outside of work, and they're wanting to do things to help better the community.
And it shows that they do something more than just show up for work every day.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
In their lives. That's good. Okay. And now, does it need to be, combining the two, leadership and volunteer work? Are you much more impressed with a leadership position within volunteer work, or really is it anything? Can you just be a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity building houses, or do you want to serve on the board of directors of nonprofit boards, things like that? What are you looking for? And specifically for six-figure positions.
Right.
For the higher level position.
Honestly, Tammy, to your point, if I see someone who has a board position that may have a little bit more weight than someone who is just, volunteering out in the community, but I have to take a look at that and take a look at everything else that's on the resume as well. So I won't just choose a person because they do have a board position or an executive level position inside a volunteer organization over someone else. It's all, it's all the entire package. It's not just one or two things that I'm going to grab onto.
Okay. Well, let's talk about how you find your candidates. I had the leader of St. Luke's Shawnee Mission Healthcare System told me in the beginning of October in a conference that we were at that she received over 150,000 resumes over the last 12 months from them. And she said we didn't get a chance really to look at any of those. We were too busy looking at the ones coming in from the hiring managers, the decision makers themselves, saying, hey, I got a hold of this resume, put this person in the system, I want to talk to them, and then also from the people that work there that are referring their friends and family. So
Mm-hmm.
what's the process that you use and have used to find your candidates, to get those resumes? And what are the most effective ways of finding the qualified ones?
Mm-hmm. You mentioned one in your last comment, Tammy. Referrals, I think, are critical. So anytime I'm working for a company, helping them do recruiting or trying to find some talent, one of the first things that I'll do is send out an email periodically, not just one time, but maybe once every 3 or 4 weeks, just to remind you the company's hiring, this is what we're looking for. We want more good people like you, so who do you know? So I think that referral piece is just critical. And I can tell you with my last opportunity where I was doing some recruiting for a company, we found quite a few people through the referral process. So I think that's just critical. Something else that I personally will do is reach out to folks within my network. So let's say, for example, I'm looking for a high-level sales individual. I know some folks who work inside Sandler training, which is obviously some sales training. So I'll reach out to those individuals and say, hey, this is the individual I'm looking for. These are the skills that I'm looking for. Can you recommend anybody? Or can you put me in touch with somebody who might be able to help me? That has been very effective for me. I use LinkedIn quite a bit, and I know probably folks on the phone have heard this or heard, people say that they do use LinkedIn a lot, but I find it to be just a really extremely effective tool. Now, from a LinkedIn perspective, I want to see a profile that's pretty robust. That means including a picture, and I think Tammy, you're a proponent of that. But I think a picture is really very important. It just helps to personalize it a little bit, and especially then if you do have an opportunity to meet with somebody, you know what they look like. One other thing that I'm really looking for inside that LinkedIn profile is recommendations. I've heard other recruiters say that they won't even consider a candidate if they don't have 3 or 4 recommendations in LinkedIn. I'm not going to say I won't consider someone, but I think, your listeners on the phone can probably attest to this or have heard this. Those recommendations are almost as good as a referral. I don't really need to check a lot of referral sources after that because those recommendations are there. I still do check those, obviously. But those recommendations in LinkedIn are really pretty critical. So I usually look at those as well. I think a company website can be very effective because it tells me in most instances that the individual who has applied for a position through the company website has given some thought to wanting to come to work at that company. It's a whole lot different.
I see. So even if it's listed on a job board somewhere, also apply through the website directly?
Yes, I would do that. I don't give a lot of credence to Monster or Career Builder. That's just me personally. I think, again, you're just getting boatloads of resumes and people who are just sending resumes. That's not always the case, and I'm not going to put everybody in that bucket or all those resumes that come in that bucket. But I just think some of the other methods that I've referred to are really more effective. And that's me personally, Tammy.
Well, and I honestly, I absolutely agree with you. I think that very much Career Builder, Monster, Indeed, those are cattle calls, really, because every single posting gets 600 to 1,000 resumes, and I've seen that number quoted several different places, and so I know it to be true. And it's an amazing number. I mean, you can't imagine that you would get hundreds and even 1,000 resumes. It used to be when I started in this business that only Microsoft or Google would have 1,000 resumes for one position. But now it's just not uncommon for mid-sized companies or maybe companies you haven't heard of to get 600 to 1,000. It's just amazing to me. Right. Going back to LinkedIn, I think that's really important. Yes, the picture is important, but I also think that it's important not only on your resume but also on your LinkedIn profile to list your achievements and not just your job responsibilities.
Absolutely.
And and maybe put the keywords, if you're looking on LinkedIn for people, you're doing a search, and the people that are coming up, what type of keywords, or how do you do a search as a recruiter or an HR manager in LinkedIn?
And that's a good question, Tammy. I will often take the job description. Let's say I'm looking for a marketing individual. So certainly one of the keywords I want to type in is marketing. I'm probably going to type in communications. Then there may be some other keywords that I pull out of the job description and I type those in. So in some respects, you know, if an individual has a job description in front of them, they can pull out some of those keywords when they're looking. But that's one way that I help to kind of you know, get through all the people that are on LinkedIn, is using a few of those keywords that are in the job posting.
Okay. That's very good information. I know that with my executive search, the people that go through my program, I've got a digital marketing director that actually puts that together for them. I think it's that important. I mean, I hire a gentleman to do all of the online profiling. We're finding that it's more and more effective, that my clients are getting more and more phone calls. I have a gentleman that is on the line, I know right now, because he emailed me, and he's received 2 interviews so far this week just from his online profiles.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. And so it does work. I have heard that in 2000, I think the stats are in 2011, 19% of employers and recruiters use LinkedIn exclusively. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile and you're listening to this, start building one this afternoon. Right. I think it's that important if you're looking for something.
There's all kinds of tools out there. I mean, just sign into LinkedIn and it'll walk you through it. Or, you know, if you're a marketing professional, type in marketing and see the other profiles that come up. And, you know, there's nothing wrong in borrowing, you know, someone else's information or the format that they've used. You just need to make sure
if it applies to you.
If it applies, right, Tammy. And you just need to be sure then that you customize it to yourself, because I think that LinkedIn profile is almost the same as your resume in that the written word is only as good as the verbal word that supports it. So if your profile doesn't sound like you when you start talking to an individual, then we have a disconnect.
Excellent. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Very good point. Now, since I build mine for my clients or have someone build it, can you tell the difference between a professionally written one and someone that's written it themselves? And does it matter?
You know, sometimes I can, Tammy. I think people who just have their name and maybe, you know, I worked at this company from this date to this date, and, you know, just list their work, the companies that they worked for on their profile. I mean, obviously there's not enough information there. When I start looking at profiles that are a little more robust, you can still tell sometimes when some of them are homegrown, if you will, and haven't had kind of that professional twist put to them. But some people are very good at writing their own, and I don't want to take any of that away from you, Tammy, but there are some folks who are very good at writing their own.
Yeah, I agree. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit because we do have a lot I want to cover, but that's some really great information.
Sure.
Thank you for sharing that. I'd like to address the format of resumes, since it's a question that I get almost every time that I talk to someone. I've heard, and I've got friends in HR, friends that are recruiters, that say that a functional or skills-based resume, a one-page highlight resume, doesn't give them enough information to sell them to a decision maker. And so they like to see a chronological. And in those cases, I always say, have a backup chronological, but I still like the functional. And you've seen my functional resumes. So between a chronological and a functional, what's your view on the difference in the formats?
From a hiring manager's perspective and from a recruiter's perspective, I almost like that skills-based or functional resume better, because it highlights in just an instant, I can see exactly what your skills are, what your strengths are, And then if I want to read down a little bit further, I can look at your work experience. But really what's important to me is what's in your tool belt and what can you bring to the job. Now, again, that's me personally, Tammy, and I think I have somewhat the same mindset that you do, because you'll talk to other recruiters and they definitely want to see that chronological resume. Some people have in their head, if you are showing me a skills-based resume, you must be hiding something. There must be a gap in there somewhere, and you don't want me to see that, and that's why you're not giving me a chronological resume. I think the skills-based is very good for someone who is a seasoned job seeker, because you may want to pull on some experience that's maybe 12 or 15 years back in your work history. And I think you share the same thing with your job seekers, Tammy, that you don't want to go back more than 10 or 12 years on your resume. But if you've got some really good skills and work experience that goes back further than that, then that you can reflect in a skills-based resume. And the other thing is if you're changing careers, and I know a lot of people are really looking at where can they spread that net a little bit wider. What are the skills that they can use in other fields? So in that case, definitely a skills-based resume is the route to go. And again, me from a reader perspective, I just like those, those bulleted skills like you do at the top of your resume, Tammy, and then, lump them into categories like leadership and management or marketing or, financial, whatever it might be. But me personally, from a reader perspective, that's the type of resume that I like to see.
Yeah. And for those who aren't familiar with my style of resume, what she's talking about are 3 bullet points in the upper half of the resume that really define who you are and what sets you apart from everyone else, really defines your strengths, and is relevant to what you're looking for. It really has to be relevant to the job title that you're seeking.